Okay, I'm going to go through the mounting instructions for the flexible build system. I'm going to do them to an Ender 2, heavily modified, but it's still the same machine as 90% of the other machines out there. Some of the tools that you're going to need to be able to do this, one is alcohol. You'll always need alcohol, some nice high strength 91%. You can get it at any pharmacy. Here's CVS brand. Paper towel. By the way, I usually buy one of these bottles for my alcohol since I use it so frequently, even between uses, to clean up my print surfaces. You might need acetone if the glue from your previous print surface stays there. You might need one of your scrapers. I also have a handy flashlight and straight edge, which will be very important for knowing if our beds worked or not. And some 000 steel wool. We'll get to why we need that and when to use that afterwards. So I'm going to follow through the instruction sheet and just verify that everything on the instruction sheet is the right way to go. So your first step will be to remove any prior build surface on top of your machine. Your machine might have had a black or blue build surface on there. Usually it's a polycarbonate and a PC sheet, whether it's BuildTak or Gecko or Creality's version. The PC sheet is not so desirable because stuff really sticks to it, especially at super high temperature, because it actually melts at a lower temperature than a lot of your filament melts at. So you're fusing the filament to the sheet, and that's why it's so many times it's so hard to get off of there without damaging your sheet. We want to just peel it up and get rid of it. You can throw it away. You want to get rid of any adhesive on the surface. So go ahead and take a piece of paper towel and take some acetone and get that wet. Try not to get too much on your hands or use gloves, and go ahead and clean that surface very, very well. Get rid of any of the adhesive from your previous surface. And that's quite important because we want a super, super flat surface. Make sure your screws are well suppressed. You have nothing sticking up. So step number 1 is done. Step number 2, we have to completely clean and flatten. We want to check the flatness. So how do we check the flatness to make sure your bed isn't bowed? This is especially important on your large build surfaces, your 310, your 410, your larger machines. What we do is we take a nice clean straight edge and we put it across the bed in multiple angles. I'll show you in a second how we check. The best way to check for flatness is to put it there with a light behind it. That's pretty darn flat there. If we find any major gaps, we're going to want to shim those gaps up. This bed happens to be very, very flat. I'll check it myself on this end. This does not have gaps, but let's just do a theoretical so we can see how the shims work. And let's pretend that you found a depression in the bed right over here at that center point right here. If I were you, I'd make a little mark with a pen. Knowing where that is, I'd grab one of our shims. Let me check this light. I'd grab one of our shim stocks. They're actually very, very thin. So you grab a shim stock, you take off the adhesive backing, and you want to lay that without creasing it or bending it. Just cut off enough for that area. You might want to take a pair of scissors and cut it right here. I'm not going to permanently put it on because mine doesn't need it. Put it on there, clean it up, and then retest again. And keep doing it until your whole bed surface is completely flat. Once your bed surface is flat, then every other application thereafter should go very smoothly. So step number 3 was checking for gaps and using the shims should you need it. This one does not need it, so we won't be using the shims. Step number 4. It's time to apply our Wham Bam magnetic base. So we want to make sure that the whole surface is clean because we don't want any dust or dirt to get on the underside of this. We want to make sure that this matches the size, and if not, you want to do some trimming. This is really well cut exactly to the base plate of this machine. If it should be too large or you have a rectangle bed on your machine and you need to cut it, this is pretty easy to cut with a straight edge. Just be very careful with it. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to pull back just one area. So I'm going to lift up this surface. This process is a good one to learn because we'll actually use it afterwards with our PEX build surface. Okay, and now I'm going to use just that back edge to line up to the back edge of the machine until I get position correct, until I'm happy. And I'm going to push down there. Now, you're going to notice I'm going to pull back the backing paper as I push down from the center. And this same technique we're going to keep on repeating. It's a good technique to get good at. And then we're going to go outwards from the center. We're just trying to eliminate any possibilities of air bubbles or wrinkles. Do get this right the first time. You don't want to pull up the sheet. Once you've applied it, you'll probably destroy the adhesive backing or the magnetic sheet. There we go. Now that should be a perfect application of our magnetic bed. And we can go ahead and test that. Look at that, that's wonderful. You can go ahead and put your flexi plate down and just use that to rub this piece into place. I would let that sit for a good 20 minutes to make sure that the glue really bonds. It's a great high temp 3M adhesive. And as I said in the beta tester kit unboxing, this magnet has been tested to temperatures up to 170 degrees C for 9 days straight without any loss of magnetism. This is really a very specific magnetic plate that we have created for these kits. To not lose magnetism with temperature, you should be great printing ABS, nylon, PC without any loss of performance. Okay, so number 5, it's now time to prepare our flexi plate with our PEX build surface. Okay, so we're now on step 5 of your instruction sheets. I've got the Wham flexi plate, for those of you who followed through with the unboxing and all the other materials. This is a spring steel plate made to not kink or bend with flexibility. And it has a high chromium content, that's why it's nice and shiny, and that'll prevent it from rusting over a period of time. The internal chrome is wonderful because that means even the cut surfaces are not exposing any area that could rust or oxidize over time. We also have our PEX polymer build surface. And the reason why this is so important, like you've all heard, is this has actually a higher performance factor than PEI, higher melt temperature, higher glass transition rate, and it just attracts every type of filament. It's been backed with a high temperature 3M backing. So let's get to applying these two. First thing I need to do is remove all of my fingerprints, any packing oil, any dirt that might have happened in the factory. So I'll take some rubbing alcohol, I'll apply it abundantly, make sure that we've got a nice clean surface before we go, and attach our PEX sheets. Okay, that looks pretty darn good. I can keep my fingers on these tabs. Nothing is going to be on those tabs. Okay, the next step is to follow the process that we use to apply the magnetic base. We're going to take the PEX plate back. Be careful that you're working on a dust-free atmosphere here, or ambient. We do not want any dust clinging onto this. It's just going to create a nice area to grab dust specks and create bubbles. We're going to want to bend this back, fold that paper without touching the adhesive, and then we're going to line up to the back of this plate into the sides. There we go. And we're going to rub that down. Okay, once that's been rubbed down, we're going to lift this up, we're going to get our hands on that paper, and we're going to start to pull that off. I should have bent a little bit more, I think. There we go. I'm trying to get it even, so we touch in the middle. I'm keeping this thing elevated. I'm just going to push down in the middle as I'm going down with this, and outward to the side. Middle first, and then outward to the side while we're squeezing out any air that could possibly go there. Just using my big thumb. Some people use squeegees or applicators. I don't think that's so necessary. Your thumb is fine here. This is a pretty big, pretty thick sheet of PEX. There we go. That's beautiful. Okay, we just applied. Let's use a piece of paper towel to reduce the friction. I'm going to rub this thing down. So right before preparing the surface with steel wool, we do want to remove the protective surface from the PEX sheet. There is a protective film on top. Okay. Once you've removed that film, we've got a nice shiny surface. And our PX resin is ready to be printed on, and we just want to hit it one time with some steel wool and alcohol. So I take my alcohol, I take 000 steel wool, and I make little circles everywhere with this. Be careful you don't pull up the edges, especially until this thing has had time to cure and really stick to your plate. One thing you might notice is if you happen to have had any air bubbles when you were laying this down, you can't get them out with a squeegee, a credit card, your fingers, you might want to take a little needle and make a prick through the PEX into the air bubble, and that'll help to sit it down. My application didn't have any, but that's just fine. So I just use steel wool and alcohol. I'm going to dry off the surface, and I'm going to hit it again with alcohol. And one more time, I'm just going to abundantly use paper towel. And you'll want to use the steel wool and alcohol between every print. You don't necessarily have to, but it's a good practice, especially if you ever notice that your PEX sheet loses a little bit of grip. Just hit it with your steel wool and some clean alcohol and some clean paper towel.